Hey guys, I want to talk about a technique that you can use, a couple of techniques that you can use to switch chords more smoothly. I teach a lot of guitar students, and one thing that they struggle with at the beginning is being able to get from one chord to the next quickly. So there's a couple things that you can do to speed up that process. And the first thing is to make your transition from one chord to the next, make it one motion. Now, your first instinct when you're switching chords is going to be to pick up your fingers and then set them down one at a time on the new chord. And that's what you have to do at first because you're kind of unsure of where your fingers are supposed to go, or you may have to look at your chord diagram and make sure they're in the right place. But eventually you want to get to the point where it's all happening at the same time. Like if I'm going from a C to a D, all my fingers are moving to the place they're supposed to be together instead of one at a time, like that. And that'll really speed up the process. So what you can do to practice that is take each chord, like say I'm working on going from C to D. So take the C, play your C, pick up your fingers and leave them in the shape of a C, even though you're not touching. You can see I'm not actually pushing the notes down, but my fingers are up in the air. I'm still in that shape. So pick them up, set them back down, and try to work on doing that in one motion instead of one finger at a time. It'll take a little while to get to this point, but it's something to shoot for. And then do the same thing with D. Play the D, pick up your fingers, set them down together, and do that 10 or 15 times. Then work on going back and forth. So I'm playing a C, pick up your fingers, make the D without pushing anything down yet, and then push it down and make your D. Pick it up, make a C, press it down, pick it up, make a D, and just go back and forth. And those are really simple chords, but it also goes for difficult changes. You know, you might have something like an E5, you're going to an E over G sharp. And your first tendency would be, okay, I'm playing an E5, and I'm looking at the second fret because that's where I have to go, and so my hand goes down to the second fret, and then I make the shape. So that's two steps. You want to make it to where it's just one step. Here's the E5. And as I'm moving down, I'm already transitioning to the shape. I'm making an E over G sharp. So that before I'm even there, I'm in position. And I just set it down. And it's one motion. Okay? So that's the first way that you can switch quicker, is to just make it one motion. The second thing you can do is sometimes you can actually change the fingering of a chord to be closer to the chord where you started. A good example of this is an E5. Okay, the first way that I learned E5 was up here on the 7th fret. And if I'm going from this chord down to an A2, for instance, that's a pretty long jump. And you can do it, but it's easier if you'll change the fingering. So another way to do an E5 is down here. And then another way to do the A2 is like this. So that's a lot smoother of a transition than this. And sometimes you want that sound of slide. Sometimes that sounds cool. But other times if you're trying to do it quicker, then you might want to change your fingering. Another example is going from C to G. Now, most of you may have learned a G like this. That's the only way a lot of people know how to do a G. Well, if I'm going from a C to a G, I'm kind of having to rearrange my fingers, my hand position is changing. But if I play my G like this with my third finger in the bass, my fourth finger on the top, that's a lot closer to a C. It almost looks like I'm playing a C right now. So there's a lot less movement in my hands. So you might want to think about changing the fingerings of some of your chords, even if it's just for one song. It's going to be uncomfortable at first because you're not used to playing it that way, but it's going to make the whole process faster. So two things you can do are change with one motion instead of one finger at a time, and then explore new fingerings for chords to find out what's closer to the previous chord.